I'm Sonya Morton Firth, and you're tuned in to the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today, my guest is Derek Mills, internationally renowned speaker, author, and associate producer of the Think and Grow Rich movie. Derek developed a stutter after the sudden death of his mother when he was a child. Most of his early career, he's considered a failed businessman and was on the verge of bankruptcy and losing his home to the bailiffs. After a life-changing moment, Derek went on to make his first million, and he now advises and coaches multimillionaires. Derek speaks from his heart and shares how you can change your life using philosophies of his daily standards. Derek, thank you so much for being a guest on my show, and welcome to my home.
Thank you for having me. Yeah,
Can you believe
pleasure.
it's been a year since we sat together and I interviewed you at the Yes Group?
Wow.
It's actually been nearly a year to the day. It was late September, and when I look back, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I knew then, when I sat there on that stage and felt your energy, that I really wanted to interview you for my show. So yes, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me back.
And I guess here we are, 2020, and there I was in Bali, beautiful spiritual place. And I set my goals for 2020, and I set them. I'd read your book, and I'm sure a lot of people did. I set them in a slightly different way. But probably the majority of people have either burnt their goals, thrown them away, or thought, what the heck has happened? Why do goals fail, in your opinion?
Yeah. I think the starting point with goals is that they're very worldly, aren't they? If you speak to most people, they would say to you, well, I want to have, I don't know, 100,000 in the bank, £1 million in the bank, that house, that many bedrooms, that guy, that girl in my life, this job, this position, this recognition, quite worldly. Yeah. So the question as to why they might fail is, although they're worldly, are they right for you? So how easy it is to set a goal based on what you think the world would have you be, rather than, so let's suppose you say, and you've seen people's goals in hundreds over the years, some of the car might be car and to drive a BMW 7 Series, whatever it might be, you know, in the vehicles section. And you go, okay, so what you're telling me then is when you came into the world, you know, as energy in a child's body, in a baby's body, you were thinking, 7 Series BMW. That's what I want. By 30, gotta have that. Because I doubt that. So what we're saying is, therefore, is that maybe the world's influenced you and each of us to set goals around things that are worldly, rather than the reality is becoming who we truly are. And we miss them because they're not really real for us. They're real things, but they're not really real for us. Because if the measure becomes, what have I got? I've got that recognition, that house, that car, this money in the bank. Well, you can't even take that stuff with you wherever you go when you shuffle off this mortal coil. And there's very little you can do with that in terms of to support your spiritual journey. So I think people tend to fade in their goals so much because their goals aren't real for them. Who really says, you know, came into the world and said, I've got to have £1 million. You didn't even know what £1 million. How many kids now want to be millionaires? They've got no idea. I know people who are 18 and 19 who couldn't tell you how many zeros to £1 million, but they want to be one. So I'm wondering whether failure is an external thing that we're grasping for that isn't real for us. And when you try to reach something that isn't real for you, you're prone to failure.
So I guess the next question that would spring to mind is, how do we know what is real to us?
Okay. Sorry.
Okay,
so for me, it's around the realization that actually it starts within. Yeah. So if we have an external goal, anyone listening to this, watching this conversation can say, look at your goals right now, get them out. Yeah. And look at your goals and see whether from a child you thought, yes, that's what I want. Or whether you somehow through the worldly observations realize that's what success looks like, therefore I'll go for that. So the thing to do, therefore, is to say, okay, start within and discover who you truly are. This is the difference that says, what if you discover who you are first? And as you realize that, because there are two realizations, the first realization is to realize who and what you truly are. That's a life journey, not a goal. Yep. The second thing is that which you realize about you, make it real, as in realize it.
Yeah, make it happen.
Yeah, exactly, make it happen.
Yeah.
First realization is a discovery. The second realization is to make it real. And if we do that, the most important thing out of all of that, because I did this from an experiential point of view, not a theoretical point of view, is that in living that way, we become automatically happy, which was a big thing for me, having lived almost 4 decades not being happy. We become instantly happy because we're living our truth. So it's more important for me, because if we start with goals, that's fine, but I'm saying really, is that it? Is that all there is? And I'm going to suggest that that's not all there is, and that isn't the most important thing. That we're at every stage, in every book, and every, I don't know.
Isn't the ultimate goal to be happy? Or...
Here's the thing. We can't really set a goal to be happy, can we?
No.
Because happiness is a present time experience. Yeah. So we can't say, I'll be happy next week or next month or in 3 years. And what I hear people do all around the world, it's not a British thing or a Western thing, from Jakarta to Dubai to South Africa to Anaheim, I've heard people say things like, when I get that, and that, then I'll be happy. Yeah, almost saying, no one's really said it in this way. Derek, don't you dare get me to be happy. Wait till I've got that and then that house and then that. No, not till then. Nope. And I've got the big house and blah, 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 and all these things. Then I'll be happy. So that then throws up a couple of questions which lead back to my premise of maybe goals isn't the thing. And what if it isn't? And we've got it wrong. So the questions it throws up for me are, okay, so what are you attaching to that thing or those goals that you've written down? They're going to say, well, happiness. Yeah, and that's the same on 4 continents. So this isn't a localized thing. So I'll be happy. So the next question might be, so what if you don't achieve that? What about that? What happened to the happiness? If you don't get the thing, and you're going to be happy when you've got it, what if you don't get it? Because you do realize, of course, that every bit of research going for the last 100 years tells you that most people, most of the time, in most places around the world, do not achieve their goals. So, and by the way, as an aside, there's something wrong with the system that everybody uses that doesn't work for most people, most places, most of the time. So just pause that there. So what we're really saying is that you attach happiness to a thing, most of which you're not going to achieve. Yeah? What happens to the happiness? And here's what's really happening for most of us when we do this. We are really doing what's called fractionation. We're separating something from self. We're saying, I'm going to reserve some happiness. Reserve it. Not feel it and experience it. Reserve it until. Yeah? And then the until never comes. What happens to the happiness? More importantly is, why are we not feeling it in the now? When we reserve something, we're not experiencing it now. We're literally taking happiness away from today on the premise that one thing might happen. And what if the good Lord says, well, it's your last night tonight? What about that? What happens then? Or what if you never achieve any of the goals? Well, what happened to the happiness? It's got to be about the being and being happy in this moment. And when we start being our true self, we get happier much quicker, much sooner. And as we start being in our true selves, we begin to live in a way that will, I need to capture this, that will allow us to achieve far more than any goal we could have written down from a sense of being. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I think we've got such a culture, particularly, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and we teach our entrepreneurs, you have to set goals. You have to, this is the way to do it. You set goals, you become accountable, you get coaches to then make you accountable. In your book, you talk about standards. Can you tell me a little bit more about standards and how they differ to goals?
Okay.
And why you think the standards are the better way to look at things?
Okay. Whether or not we set goals, it's really about the being. It's about the being. And within each of us, there's a genius. So can you accept that? Everyone's a genius. You were born a genius. When you came to this world, you're a 10. You were born a 10. And one of the challenges is that sometimes in the world we get into life as a child or a young adult or an older adult, and the world is treating us as a 3.
It's beaten out.
And oftentimes we treat ourselves as a 3. So you're born a 10. Every single one of us is born a 10. But when we treat ourselves as a 3, don't be surprised when the world shows up and treats you like a 3. Because that's how you're... I'm saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's fair, and I wasn't there when the rules were made, but what I do know is that you were born absolutely perfect in every single way, with capacity, with potential to do everything you need to do before you move on. But if you show up in the world and you allow it, or by neglect, allow that, or perhaps not by neglect because you've got no choices, or you believe you show up as a 3 and you play at a 3. But how do you achieve your greatness? Because here's what the world does. Let's say you're thinking, well, to achieve my objectives and be who I want to be, I've got to be dealing with 7s. I've got to have 7 relationships. I've got to have not 7 relationships.
But people that you think
exactly,
are
yeah. I've got to have relationships who are 7, businesses who are 7, clients who are 7.
It's like men and women mark themselves, don't they? If we
Indeed,
take it back to base level,
indeed,
it's like, oh, she's a 9, he's a 7. You say, oh, well, why do you see all these women that are 10s with men that are 2s? Because they've got loads of money.
Well,
it's,
maybe, yeah. But you're right, though. The thing is, what we're saying is, what I'm going to put out there is that every single one of us is a 10. But we may show up as a 3, and to achieve the success that we're guided to talk about, and we're guided to say this is what success means, because it's actually something different to what we've all been told. You only need to deal with 7s, clients and prospects and business deals and business partners and associates. But here's the problem. 7s don't deal with 3s. 7s deal with 7s. So if you're turning up and the way you live your life, in your relationships, your business, your health, your environment, your internal mindset, your career, your time, your money, and you're playing at a 3, do not be surprised you never achieve what you think you could achieve, because the clients you want, they don't even see you. So the idea, therefore, is what do we do to internally shift ourselves, to begin to see ourselves as we truly are. Maybe you can't see ourselves as a 10 immediately, but what we can do is can we over time raise how we treat ourselves, raise how we speak to ourselves, raise how we project. This is not a lie. It's not like a fake it till you make it. This is, no, you are a 10 when you're going to recognize that, and start showing up at a greater level, and all of a sudden, wow, so now you're a 7. And one of the greatest thrills about this for me was when I was like, oh, I'm attracting all these clients who are 7s. Well, I'd give my little finger to become a client before. Now they're just saying, actually, they're saying things like, can we deal with you? Have we got enough money to deal with you? Is it okay? And I'm like, oh, what's happening here? So they're now perceiving me to be more than, say, the 7. So it is about, we are in control of that part. No matter what the world does to us, there are some exceptions, always exceptions. It's up to us to raise who we are and to do that. The way we do that, to answer your question, is we raise the standards of how we present to ourselves and how we present to the world. So a goal says, I'm going to get this one day and be this one day and have this one day. A standard says, actually, a standard is the basis, criterion, level, quality or rule that you set from within. So you start within. A basis, criterion, quality, level or rule that you set from within, and you live and you present and you talk and you meet and you interact and you speak and you do everything in your world at a newer, higher standard.
Could you give me an example of that, Derek?
Wow, yeah. So on a personal level, you might say, actually, someone's I spent 10 years as a magistrate, and one of the things that came to mind just then was you might have someone who was in an abusive relationship, and it's not about attributing fault, but it's to say that I remember being in court, and this will stick with me forever, being in court, and we were sitting on the bench, and this lady was in court giving evidence. And one of the questions from the prosecutor, because her former partner was in the dock, was, why are you doing this now? Why are you prosecuting now? Well, it turned out he'd been abusing her for 20 odd years. And she'd accepted that. Yeah. And here's what her words were. There was a moment that came when I realised that this isn't how a relationship should be. She didn't use the word standard, that this is not how it should be. So I said to myself, not as a goal, use some words that were along the lines of, she was always thinking one day my prince will come and it'll be okay one day and all the rest of it. Eventually said, no, this is not how a relationship should be. I'm not accepting this. The next time he using her words, puts his hand in my face, he's broken the standard. She didn't use standard, but that's it. She's
broken my standard.
Exactly.
I'm not going to put up with that
not
anymore.
Looking for a prince one day. No, this is not how it's meant to be. And so at that point, she said she went upstairs, she got the case, got the kids, and walked. After 20 years in a relationship, so 6 months later, here we are in court, prosecuting her former abuser. So that's one example of, and it's not really to say it was her fault. I'm using her words to say she made a decision about who she was in the world and how she'd allow other people to treat her. From a business perspective, I used to have a torrid time running around, driving all over the UK, meeting clients for my financial services business as a financial advisor. I didn't really get into wealth management until I had some wealthy clients, so it took a while. And I'd go anytime, any place, anywhere. Yes, okay, I can come and do your £50 a month pension. Yes, I can come and do that. So where are you? Salisbury. Right, okay. So I'm driving from Solihull to Salisbury or Newcastle, Bournemouth, anywhere pretty much. And weekends, oh yes, I'll come at the weekend. Of course, come Saturday morning, that's fine. Evenings, yes, after work, so you can't see me in the daytime. No, okay, it's fine. I'll drive to you then, and I'll get to you for 7 in the evening when you've had your life and lived your way and enjoyed your kids
so you were
and
back
your husband.
breaking yourself.
All of it, breaking myself.
Yourself
and so I had, my standards were whatever the world will do to me and for me. And it treated me pretty badly, you know. And it came to a point where I said, after my breakthrough, I said, actually, you know what? Here's who I am as a person. And I want to be home with my wife and home with my children. I don't want to be driving so many miles on the motorway anymore. So I want to say, right, new standards. All clients come to me. You want a meeting with me? All of them come to me in the office. Lost lots of clients. But I wasn't living the old way anymore. So I didn't mind that.
So you basically gave yourself a new standard.
A new standard. Clients come to me. That's one of them. My clients must be nice people. They won't abuse me and abuse my trust. That I set a minimum level of income, which over time I've refined. A minimum level of wealth. A minimum premium, if you want to call it that. That's not just anyone, but if not doing this, okay, we can help you, but not me. I'll introduce you to somebody else who's willing to do that. And said all those, and then clients began to literally. I need to say this. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but what I found was that the core clients that I wanted and the few decent ones that I did have were ready to raise the standard of how they treated me the minute I did. In other words, these people were ready to come to the office and see me in the daytime and not have meetings at weekends and don't do any evening appointments. I haven't done that for like 17 years. But they were treated me at a level because that's where I was projecting from. They were already there. And millionaires that would walk past me because I wasn't there were suddenly seeing me and going, oh, so you're the guy that does this and I've got to come to you. And you'll give me a time of when you can see me. Yep, that's the guy. I'm that guy. Okay, so when can you squeeze us in for? And then they'd come to my office with their financial data on a pre-populated form that they'd brought in. I remember the first few times it happened where these people had to give them my little arm for. Not that I've got a little arm, but you know what I mean. I had to give them my arm, my little finger, to have them as a client. And now they're sitting there occasionally, you know, I'd look at their financial. So have we got enough to be? Is there enough there to be dealing with you? And look at this guy, and they'd have like 4 million quid, you know, of investable assets. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, but you know, it's not about the money. That's fine, but let's talk about you and me in this relationship, and let's understand why, age 72, you're in the room still looking for the right relationship. So how come you're here? Because I need to understand what's not happened for you in the past, so I can see whether what I do and how you are and how we might fit together, or how you might not fit together. Let's explore that. The money I've been doing for so many years, there's nothing about the money I'm not going to be able to answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll call someone. It's not about the money, it's about you, it's about people. So let's explore how you're here. Then I slide into their values and their identity and who they were and their relationships and what happened to the previous one to say, okay, let's work these people out. And the whole of that time I'm holding a space of love. I'm thinking, I love these people. When I'm sitting there with these people, I'm thinking to myself, this is my sister. This is my Uncle Oscar, Auntie Rona. And I'm just holding a space of love so that they can feel that they can open up and share the truth about who they are and why they're really there. Because to the degree that we do that, it might be weird to say this, but I just kind of fancy that people are looking for somewhere to plug in, looking for somewhere to finally feel, oh, wow, this feels right. And then they say that so many times, this feels right. It might be a totally left-brain accountant or former financial director, but they're going, this feels right. And it's great to get to a space where you can just feel that regardless of what you're selling or what you're there to do, that the first thing you're doing is coming from a position of love and holding a space for another human being or two human beings. Because if you start there, I mean, that's the greatest place to start from. And then you work it from there. You know, people say to me, well, your fees are higher than the average person would see. And we met so-and-so, and he seemed, they won't say this, but that's what they mean. He's a bit cleverer than you, and they have this, and their offices were swanky, I'm like this. But you know what? It feels right to deal with you, Derek. And so we would like to deal with you. what are the next steps? How do we do this?
But don't you think that's your gift? I mean, I think I can feel your, this sounds a bit weird, it sounds a bit woo-woo, but I can feel your aura. And I felt it when we sat on the Yes Group stage. I'm all about energy, and I pick people's energy up. And you've got this amazing energy that you just want to trust and talk. And I feel totally stripped naked, and but not vulnerable, in a very relaxed way.
Yeah.
But don't you think that's your gift? Has everyone got that gift and ability
I
to
think
do that?
if by that gift you mean the ability to hold space for somebody else, to think about love, to really, really, really understand that it's about understanding them, and to the degree you can understand someone, you can help them better, further, deeper, more. So why are you in the room? That then becomes the question. Well, I'm here to do the business and close the sale, get this contract, Actually, are you there? Really? Maybe you're in the room to, this time, in this space, with these people who've travelled this earth for 72 years. My average client's 72. They've travelled the earth, say, for 72 years on average, yet here they are in the room with you. Surely part of you's got to be curious to say, well, how come you're here with me, and what's happened, and how you're here, and how do we make sure that in 30 years' time, or in 10 years' time, or in 5 years' time, you're not in the room with somebody else? So what do I have to understand now? When you go through a relationship, we've all done it in our life, would be friendships or relationships, and then it breaks down. At the end, there's one or both people saying, well, this didn't happen, and you weren't doing that, and you never got that, this wasn't being done, this was never said, and blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, that's all being said at the end of the relationship.
But yes, let's face it, we all go through the arguments.
We do, yeah. And even if there's resolution, and there's an understanding at the end, that's the kicker. It's the end. So here's what I suggest that we do when I work with other people and coach people in sales or marketing, is say, well, why don't we have those conversations at the beginning? So what have to happen, and what does this feel like, and how about this, and your values, and who are you really? So have those questions at the beginning, and then we can say, actually, this is never going to work. And it's absolutely fine, but now we know, oof.
Yes, we've saved ourselves a hell of a lot of time and heartache. Yeah.
It's okay to have the emotionally upset conversations at the end, but isn't it better and it's more natural and nicer to have a conversation if you're brave enough to say, okay, let's talk this through. What is it? Not interrogate, have an interview, but to at least talk through the main points, values and identity, and what truth means, and what trust means, and all these other things, and say, okay, so are they close enough to where this might work? Yeah, and you still feel the same way? Yes, I do. Well, so do I. Or, actually, I think based on this, and this, what I can do here, I've got a really nice friend.
But doesn't it come back to standards again, actually?
Of course it does. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm a this, and actually they're not a this, because they don't meet my standard in...
And you
it could be health and fitness, let's say.
Correct.
Correct. For example, I've got a very high bar on that. I know I would never, and this sounds awful, but I wouldn't be with somebody that I didn't consider fit in some sort of way. And just because I would feel that that would lower my standards at the same time. Yeah,
and it's where you've kind of hit the nail on the head, how standards are utilised. What we're looking at is when we're working with other individuals or couples is to ascertain, to find out, to understand and seek to understand, really wanting to understand who they are, the standards, their values, their identity, and then saying, honestly, and I can get this business, because how many times have we done business with someone because we could, but we really shouldn't have done? Yeah? And we say to ourselves, actually, so now's the time to be honest and say, living for my truth, actually, now I know this, I'm definitely the best person for these people. And they're right for me. Now there's a match of standards, there's a match of delivery of service, if you want to call it that. I can do this, and this. If I say something weird, I literally say this to people, if you come up with something weird that I can't do, I will say so. And if you shouldn't work together, that's absolutely fine. We don't work together. There's no closing question at the end of this presentation. There's a talk together at the end. We might decide to work together. And if we both decide to work together, we'll have another meeting to discuss how. If one of us says there's not to, absolutely fine. Not going to chase you. Not going to follow you up. It's not what we do.
Don't you think a lot of people think I can't say no to a client. I mean, I'm thinking of entrepreneurs. Actually, I'll take it to the relationship or even a relationship. They've maybe got to that stage. They've been single for a while. Someone's come along, blown their lights out. You know, the infatuation stage, and they're not thinking of all the signals that are going, the red flags. They're just thinking about obviously their chemistry.
Indeed.
And the same in business. Someone's waving a nice, $100 note or whatever, and a check. And how can you say, because it's almost like the temptation, isn't it? It's like waving this in front of your face.
Yeah.
And we're conditioned to take it.
Yeah. Lead us not into temptation. Yeah. You're so right with that, because I think back to the year after I woke up to daily standards and truth and all the rest of it, and being my true self, I had a test.
That's just sent shivers down my spine. The amount of times that I've been led, the temptation thing.
Yeah.
And in different walks of life.
So you wake up to your truth, and then someone turns up with an opportunity and they dangle something, and immediately takes you back into the world. Oh gosh, from that I would earn 170,000. Oh, okay. So I'll do that. And the question is then, do you go for that and get on the hook and forget your truth? And that's what happened to me. I have, the world, whenever you set new standards, the world will test you. Be under no illusion, this is no fluffy way of living. When you set new standards, the world will test you for two reasons. One, the people that know you and around you are used to you being this way all of your life. So hitherto, they've known you to be this level with your money, your career, your time, your relationships. So don't be surprised when people try and treat you the old way, because that's what they were used to. So be patient with them. The second thing is that when we look at individuals, we have to decide whether we're going to fall, back into our old self, or stick to our truth. So I woke up, 10-second moment occurred.
Yeah, so I was about to say, when did this all happen?
Yeah. And then 12 months later, I had a client come to the office in Solihull. He had about £7 million, let's say billion then, £7 million of investable assets, which was at that time the biggest client I'd seen at that time. And the kind of client I wouldn't have got that client before. That wouldn't have got a meeting because I wasn't ready, I wasn't there. Would never have happened. Here I am, 12 months after waking up to my truth. I'm sitting with this guy and his wife in the boardroom, and we're kind of 20 minutes into the meeting. And I'm beginning to feel uncomfortable, but happy. This chap had been asking questions to himself and to his wife about their values and their identity and how they feel. The money things wasn't an issue. And he was saying things like, well, you'd answer the question, then I'd ask her a question. He go, oh, no, don't ask her, just, he answered for her. Then he began to speak over her, to the degree when the first 20 minutes I'd ask her a question, she'd just go, as in, don't ask me, just ask him. He's not letting me speak. So I had a moment. I just thought, wow, biggest case I've ever had in front of me. Wow, this is exciting. I can't wait to the next bit. And I began to close my folder up, and I said, Mr. Brown, Mr. C in the book, his name is Mr. Brown, you won't know him. And I said, Mr. Brown, based on what I've seen so far in this meeting, I can see no basis for us doing business together. Because inside I knew, if he's going to treat his wife that way in front of a complete stranger, he's going to make my life hell if I dealt with him. And I thought, what he doesn't know is I've been to hell. In the previous 17 years in hell, and I ain't going back. Yeah. So I closed my folder and I said, so I'm seeing no basis for us doing. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, so I told him a bit of the history and what I'd done. When I got to the place where I'm choosing my client, I know you came out to assess me. I'm also assessing you, and I can see no basis for us working together. So I stood up. And he said, oh, but you better. He was a very jowly guy, very, very big. So I'm kind of like a Jabba the Hutt type character.
Everyone sees Jabba the Hutt character walking
and his name's Mr. Brown. It's him, yeah. And he's like, no, you better shred my documents. I said, I'll return the originals to you, of course. And I said, fine. And I saw them out there at the boardroom, at the building, signed them out, walked back to the boardroom, which was called the Stratford boardroom back then. And I actually did this. I leapt in the air, punched the air, turned around, and I patted myself on the back, because I knew that was a test, not just of my standards, because having people that are nice people as my clients is that's right up there with there. And the second thing was, it was a test. It was the universe saying to me, are you going to stick to your truth? Yeah. You're going to stick to your truth?
Temptation.
And I said yes. And since that point, I've met people who are significantly nicer and significantly wealthier than Mr.
And
Brown.
I bet you changed Mr. Brown's life as well. I bet he'd
Well,
never...
I wonder. You know what? I've never been asked that before.
I bet.
Wow.
Do you think you have? I mean, in that moment,
who knows?
you said no to someone that probably sounds like he's never said been
Correct.
Said no
yeah, he was
to.
more former banking exec.
Yeah, with a wife that obviously didn't or wasn't allowed to speak.
Indeed.
And,
never thought about that. Yeah, so who knows? Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, who knows? But no, God bless him on his journey anyway. The idea is that we're all in all going through our own stuff. We are a collective, but we are each on a journey, and it's a recognition and respect for wherever somebody is, however they're behaving, even if it's extreme. There'll be reasoning behind that.
How do you recognise those red flags? Okay, you recognised it in the meeting as soon as it was quite an obvious red flag. I guess he was treating his wife poorly.
Yeah.
But in what other ways would you recognise it? Because I think a lot of us, I mean, red flags are sometimes quite obvious, but we tend to choose to ignore them.
Once more,
We choose to ignore them.
We do. Yeah.
And again, I'm having aha moments of times I've chosen to ignore them because I haven't either wanted to face reality or trust my own gut instinct.
Indeed. Well, you've kind of answered your own question, haven't you? Because you get to the choice point, and like you say, many of us get to that choice point sometimes hundreds of times a year, and we still go, "Oh, I recognise this as a choice point. Well, I'm going to do it anyway." And so what I'm saying is, you have a choice, and most of us will, do the thing which we already know. That instinct that comes in is kind of a saying, "Pay attention, be aware." This probably isn't right for you. Even if the words aren't there, grab this feeling, be aware of it. And it's like, I don't know what it came to, but it's coming to me now, so I'm going to say it. It's like, you dress, and perhaps you're going to an event, you're going to buy a new outfit, and you dress, and you go to the department store or the boutique that you normally go to. And I'm going to take a risk here by saying, you sometimes go to a store and you put on an outfit, and your friend's with you and say, "Oh, look, you're great in that, Sonya." And the lady that's serving you says, "Oh, that looks amazing on you, madam." And you don't quite get that feeling. And you can't,
it doesn't feel
it doesn't quite feel right. And you don't know why. It does kind of look good. And you wear it. And then after you've worn it that once for the event, how many times do you wear it?
Never again. Never again.
So I've never bought a dress.
Really, Derek? I'm sure you too are.
But you know, and it never suits you in the future either. So hold that thought. And then there's this other time where you go to the boutique and you try a dress and you put an outfit on, and also, boom, you're like, yeah, and you know the signals and you feel it, you know it, and no one's going to tell you anything. That's it. So next question, you buy the outfit. How many times do you wear the outfit after that event? As many times until somebody says, "Didn't you wear that last?" The arm's falling off because that was you. And what we're saying is we get to a choice point where we say, actually, it's a difficult question, it's a difficult answer, but the answer is, I think we all know. But we get to a choice point, and it's whether we're willing to live our truth or to do something which we instinctively, intuitively know isn't quite right. And if we do that, don't be surprised what turns up in your life. That might sound a bit harsh, but if you keep making these choices, when you keep getting that gut feeling or red flag, whatever you want to call it, and you keep making the choice against that gut feeling, do not be surprised when stuff you don't want turns up, because that's the path you're being led down.
When did you find your truth?
Well, there's two-part answer to that. The first part is the book, The 10-Second Philosophy.
Talk me through that, because we haven't talked about your background.
Yeah.
You haven't always been so successful by any stretch of the imagination.
And, okay. The first thing I'd like to then is redefine success.
Yes, I realised, I actually realised what I said, because to many people you were successful, but you weren't successful to yourself. You didn't feel fulfilled within yourself.
No, not at all.
Isn't that the biggest failure? Because it doesn't matter what other people think, it's how you feel.
That's how you feel. Yeah. We all know people who are massively successful, worldly recognition, all the wealth they could imagine, they're just not happy and take a walk out of this life in an unnatural way. Success to me has become something different to what it would appear to be. But I do understand what the success means to most people.
It's out when it's an external success, I guess.
Indeed.
It's what society has deemed as successful.
Yeah.
And I led that life for years.
Yeah. Well. So for me now, success is, it's that realised squared. I put in a chapter in the book called Realised Squared. Success is the realisation of who you are and what you've got inside of you. And that means you've got to look inside, not adding more stuff from the outside. So realising what you've got inside of you, and to the degree that you realise it, make it real in the world, because that's why you came in with it. That's why it was given to you. That's the success.
I remember reading that part in the book where you said the biggest travesty is people that actually, they find their true purpose, they find their gift, and then they sit with it and don't do anything
with it.
because they're too afraid.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is the travesty. And I think so many people see that, but they're too frightened to take the next step.
Indeed.
What would you advise people if they're sitting there, they're watching this, and they think, oh, I love doing this, or this is my gift, or I really feel like this is me, but I'm not going to make money from it, or I'm not going to be successful at it, however you deem success, or do you know what? It's just it's just a passion thing. It's it's just my hobby.
Yeah.
What would you advise people to do to take that next step?
Okay. The real answer is not what most people expect. Because it isn't a question of A, B, C, just do it, it's your passion, go for it, whatever. That's all well and good. The reality of it is, try it out. You see an outfit in a store, try it on and see how you feel living that way. Give it a go for a while, because one thing you'll know about my standards by reading the book is I started out with this level of standards, and over time as I got comfortable, confident, and then consolidated, so we went through the 4 C's with each standard, I would raise them up and raise them up and raise them up. So in other words, for some people, you can jump in 100% and go straight for it and just quit that job and leave that relationship and go for it. Not what I did, because I'm still doing the same thing when I was broke and depressed in the same financial services. But the idea is try it on. And if I think of a stairway, go to step 1 and get comfortable, confident, competent, and consolidate that position. Now raise it up. Now live there and get comfortable, confident, competent, consolidate. Now raise it up. Try it on for a bit. So I know people don't like the word try. Yoda says there is no try. I'm saying, Yoda, there is a try.
There is a try.
Give it a go. Do the first step and see what happens from there. Don't look at the whole staircase. Just look at the first step. And when you get there, you'll see, how do I feel about this? Okay, consolidate. Now move to the next step. So give it a try. I'm not going to be any more direct than that, because I didn't do anything different to that. I just gave the new me a try, and my old standards, I've changed them so many times over the years. So looking back and joining up the dots, I started at a different place. If I told you my standards back then, they're not my standards right now. Lots of them. Some are the same, of course, but others are different.
So how do you find, or how do you work out your standards? Do you write them down? Do you visualize them?
Yeah, all of those things. But yeah, so remember, before I kind of woke up and had my 10-second moment, I'd done 17 years of goal setting. Everything from Tony Robbins, the CDs, the downloads, every program you could think of, did so many of them, but still broke and depressed at the end of that period of time. And I'd written them down, and I'd visualised them, and I'd close my eyes, and I'd imagine the money and all the rest of it. And I still can remember the words that I spoke over that.
Incantations,
the incantations.
positive,
that was what it was coming to me about, is that visualisation. But actually, it's so I stopped that, because in my 10-second moments, which was one.
Well, let's talk about that 10-second moment. What actually happened?
Yeah, it's funny. I've not thought this before, so it must be something here. That although it was a 10-second moment, so many things had happened up to that point that caused that moment to happen, to occur, and to be recognised. Because I'd had a crash on the motorway the previous year, because I was so tired driving back from a client I was seeing like 10 o'clock at night and trying to overtake someone in the fast lane. I was already in the fast lane, but I was so tired to not even notice that, crashed into the barrier and all the rest of it. Bad relationships led by me, and all this thing going on, not being happy. Perhaps a couple of friends, actually probably one at the time. And against that point in 2003, November the 11th, and going, no, what? This isn't even my life. This isn't me. It's not what I'm meant to be. And I've been setting goals for this for like 17 years, but this is not me. And I remember slamming the drawer of the filing cabinet and just saying, I've had enough of being and living this way, this life that I absolutely knew. I don't care. I didn't have the intelligence or some guru type words, but I just knew this was not my life. I'm not meant to be here. I'm meant for better than this. And that's when I had my 10-second moment, because I literally stood there in the office and I was like, whoa. I'm not saying, you've been setting goals for 17 years, but you're broken, depressed, so stop doing that then, okay. And you've been looking about the future, and you've been thinking about being happy one day when you've got that and that, and measuring yourself against other people and all that. So stop doing that. Instead, what you want to do is live by standards set from within, live by your truth. So in other words, set your own criteria, your own basis, your own levels, your own qualities, your own rules from within, from your truth, and live from that space. And don't do this forever. Just do this today. So in about a 10-second moment, and be fair, because of all they've been doing for the previous 17 years, the Robins and the Rowans stuff and every other teacher out there, it was like, well, what? Well, but then I knew. I began to listen to the voice and I recognized the voice. It was my voice. It was my voice telling me that this is who you really are. That's what you've been doing. So imagine like this hurricane occurring, everything you've been doing before, but in the middle of that hurricane, there's a small ball of air, and inside that ball of air, there's a really exquisite butterfly just flapping its wings, saying, "That's right. This is who you are." So that was the moment for me. So I left the office that evening because it was about almost 10 o'clock at night. That's my typical, 6 days a week. And in the weekdays up until about 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, if I wasn't driving to see someone somewhere, I had a bed in the morning before the kids woke up, back after they'd gone to bed, weekends, struggling to pay the bills, always the month, having more of it, so the money running out before the month did, having one house repossessed, saving the marital home from a repossession order, bailiffs in the house. I could go on, but we've all got our stories in terms of how bad things are, and crying at times, what do I do here? Come on, what do I do? And began to a point where I realised, you know what? In that 10-second moment, I realised I'm going to be happy now. Now. Not in the future. Now. Because I'm going to be me now. And the old way wasn't me. And you can't be truly happy as not you. You can only be happy as your true self.
How do you know you? How did you find you?
I found me by going back to that, just by checking in and knowing, you know what? I think I always knew. When I recognised the things that were coming from me, not what come into me, because what would come into me was different to all of that. When I recognised what was coming from me, I thought, hold a second, that's me. And that's the place I need to be. That's the voice I need to listen to and pay attention to. And I also knew there was a much more spiritual element than what I'm doing in my business. There was a spiritual connection. I felt it in that moment, and I feel it all moments since then. There's a spiritual element to that. So what I did, to answer your question, is that I then, the next day, I laugh because I tell more people this than I used to. I write down all my new standards, taking the kids to school these days of the week. No more evening appointments, no more working weekends, new standards as a rule. Clients must come to the office, work out all these work standards and being at home and being there in the morning and taking them to school, all these things. And I wrote them down and I colour-coded them and then I laminated them. Actually, I did that. There's a confession.
You laminated
on the Sonya show,
them.
I laminated my original standards. And what I did then, getting to be hot now, that was a bit embarrassing. There you go. But I laminated them and I got 5 copies. I put one myself, put one on the fridge with a fridge magnet. I went home that evening and said to my wife, knew me. She'd been used to all the other stuff.
I was about to say, did your wife not sort of think, Hannah's coming through the door or what?
No, because I've done a lot of programs and tried things, been on courses and listened in the car.
So it was another
almost
personal
like
growth.
another thing he's doing. God bless him and I love him, but
Yeah.
another thing he's doing. So I came home, gave her a copy of the not what gonna be. This is me right now. These are my new standards, how I am right now. New dad, new husband, and our oldest 3 kids. Because the youngest was too young to read or laminated anything. So I gave the oldest 3 kids a copy of theirs and said, new dad, and this is it now. And so yes, did I write them down? Yes. Did I laminate them? Yes, I admit that, I confess. And then I began to live by them. And as time went on, as I began to get comfortable with those standards and competent at operating at that level and confident, I then consolidated, straightened the back leg, stepped up again and raised those standards. And that's what we did.
There was one thing that you just said that was really, that I wanted to pick you up on.
Yep.
You said up until that moment, you felt the spirituality, which has now become a big part of your life.
Yeah.
Were you spiritual before that moment?
I recognised my spirituality, but was I acting in a spiritual way and living that? No.
What does the spirituality mean?
I
think people think it's used a lot these days. I think, and funnily enough, I just literally about 2 hours before you came around, I was taking a walk down by the river, a guy sort of stopped me and he asked me a question. He went, what do you think God thinks about all of this right now? He was clearly, obviously, about to give me and I actually stood and talked to him. He was probably frightened. He probably thought, wow, someone's actually talking to me, not me.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I thought right then, I said, oh, I'm quite a spiritual person. And I thought, what's the difference? Is it spirituality, religion, faith? What?
Yeah, so religion is kind of a man-made construct, whereas spirituality is recognizing that, and it's been often said before, that we are literally spirits, ephemeral beings having a physical experience. Yeah. So if we can accept that, and what we do know, especially your belief system, of course, and what your faith is that that which is the permanence of you doesn't change. So your spirit was you when you were born. You're born at 10 and you'll die at 10. Whether you lived as a 10 is a matter for you. Yeah. So, but your body changes, doesn't it? You're 10, you're 30, you're 50. Things change.
Keep it at
10. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly. Try and keep it at 10. Go on. When you're 99, say number 10. Oh, I don't know, great grandma. Are you though? Are you really a 10, grandma? And but you go, well, look at this. You go, actually, I'm a spirit, and that spirit is the being of your truth, who you truly are, and that is what I recognise is what's connected to God. Because before, and I'm a spirit, but I didn't have that relationship with God in terms of He wasn't part of my life. I believed in Him. I knew there was one. I went to church on a Sunday, and I would sit down and stand up and kneel, and different times, through my church. But actually, it wasn't until I realised, oh my gosh, if there's a God and He's my creator, and I believe there is, I don't even know Him. So I began to open up to my spiritual connection to Him, recognising that He's the one that gave me that spirit. So we are spirit, and we're made in His image. So, and He's great, and He's definitely a 10. So that's how I began to work to live my life, to the degree that I even though I've been a Christian all my life, because I brought up as a Christian, all the rest of it, I became a Christian again, because now it was a conscious choice. That's what I want to do, to become a Christian again. And began to live a life in a much more spiritual way, i.e. The spiritual life and God and others first, rather than world first. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So rather than living in a worldly way, even once I woke up to the book, I knew I was a spiritual being, but I was still kind of counting the money and looking at the success and going, okay, it is for my truth, but now it's giving me this. What I love doing right now is just turning down opportunities that would make me money. They're just not right for me, because my spirit is saying that's not real for you, and it's not right for you. I love just saying my spirit's telling me not to do that. I'm following my spirit.
Is it money that's not important to you?
Well, it's an interesting one, because money is important. It's not we have to say to ourselves, if I didn't pay my bills, they'd come and turn the electric off. Yeah. So money is important. But it's to say that money isn't the thing. Money isn't the main count. Yeah. When you shuffle off this mortal coil, sitting down there on your deathbed with your loved ones, I don't think anyone's going to be saying, well, Sonya only made 17 million.
Yeah.
Never mind. They will be saying, man, how she loved.
Yeah.
Remember how she used to talk and how she laughed. And there's this one time when I was really stuck and no one understood me, and for some reason she picked up on that, and she put her arm around my shoulder, and she gave me some words of encouragement, and she allowed me to felt when I was with Sonya, I really felt myself. It's as if she gave me permission to be me just by her being her. That's the richest thing that anyone's ever given me. And that's more than money, isn't it? No one goes away counting the money. So is money important? Yeah, we've got to pay the bills. You go back to ancient days, even the biblical times, where Christ was, he was a carpenter, and his dad was a carpenter, as in the Joseph guy, not his god dad. And they were carpenters. They were professional carpenters, so they made things and got paid for it. So then they need to pay the bills, and there's parts in the old scripture it says they had to go and buy food for the crowd. So everyone needs money, but money is not the final count. It's not even the main count. So to me now, I'm not going to go into it, but so many times I get opportunities. If we just do that, we can do that, and I'll work with you on that. We'll get this. I'm like, oh, you know what my grandmother would say? My spirit didn't take to a person. or her spirit didn't take to the thing. And I feel that now. Back then, she was like, what's Grandma saying? And now I'm like, I get it, Grandma. And I know what you mean by your spirit doesn't feel that's right for you. Doesn't make the person wrong. Doesn't make the project wrong. But you're just going, that's not right for me.
Why is it always got... I feel my grandma all the time. Is it a grandma thing? Because I had a very special relationship with my grandma.
Okay.
And I feel her around me all the time.
Wow.
All the time.
Did you spend time with her?
I felt it today. I passed a place on Richmond High Street and somebody was cooking. And I could smell her stew.
Right.
This is bizarre. And I'd never smelled this. Took me back to my childhood. Anyway, we're digressing, but it is.
Because this is what it's about. We're not digressing at all, because it's going back to answer your question again, or part B of that, is that we have to decide. Yeah, yes, we've got to pay the bills. Well, there's a throw out your house. Yeah. But if that's not the count, well, what is the count then? Well, what is the measure at the end of our lives? Surely it's got to be is, how did we live? How did we love? How did we help others? What difference did we make in this world? That's got to be the count. If it's just the money thing, that what most world thinks it is, then a lot of people are going to do things not in love because they think it's about money and land.
Do you think we're being shown that more and more today? I mean, we have to talk. We can't get away from this interview and not talk about the fear and anxiety that we're living in today, and yet. Certainly when we first went into lockdown and went into this pandemic, I mean, I was doing a series of interviews and I had to change the way I was doing things, as a lot of people did, and I did Zoom interviews. And I was interviewing people that were stepping up, that were actually going above and beyond their usual everyday duty. And what I was finding is there was a tremendous feeling and act of kindness that were coming from the human soul, the soul, not the humans, but literally it was as though we were all coming together.
Yeah. Felt that.
Now, what I feel has happened, and it would be great to get your view on this, is something else has happened, and it's almost disjointed that, and it feels like we've gone the other way.
Yeah. My feeling is that I agree with you on that, and I've felt that. There was a feeling of in the early days of in this together.
Yes.
Oneness.
Kindness,
and a recognition, and nodding people who you wouldn't have nodded to before, and people walking and standing, we're all
Talking
in this
to
together.
your neighbours, we were clapping the
And
NHS.
all of that. And then I think what happens, and we have to be wary of this, the world and certain characters and protagonists in the world are happy with that. They would prefer if people are loggerheads. And let's say that there's good and there's evil, or there's good and there's not so good, or there's good and there's bad. Bad, not so good or evil. People getting on, people loving each other, people caring for each other. That's the antithesis of what that wants. And the key thing therefore is that the dark side of the world will try and regain control when it sees things going in a light way.
And I feel that's certainly over the past, couple of months?
Yeah, I felt that. I mean, without going into the politics and all the other stuff that we could go into, I think people watching this conversation will already understand what we're talking about. So the key thing then is, that the thing about darkness, however form that takes, is that darkness abhors the light. The darkness cannot stand the light. Yeah, so we have to shine our light into the darkness. Shine a light into someone's life, to be the light that somebody else, to be the light that someone can turn to when it gets dark, and times they are dark, and to be that light, because darkness can't stand the light. But you know what? It doesn't matter how dark it gets. Have you noticed when you light the smallest little of light, flick on the tiniest candle or light your lighter, no matter how dark it is, the light penetrates it. No matter how dark it is, the light breaks through. So all we have to do is then light our light and be the truth and be who we are. Because the stuff which we haven't got time to discuss on this particular conversation of the world will try and bring the people, that they'll sow division, sow hate, and sow difference and all these things. And if you sow that, you're going to reap a lot more, worse than that. So if it's being sowed in the last few months, which I also recognise, we're going to see what's going to be reaped from that. And you're not going to sow one type of seed and get something different. You're going to get what you sow. So what does that mean? you, me, we have everyone listening to this conversation,
So
has a
love.
responsibility to sow the right things, to go out there and, in spite of that darkness, to turn on the light, to not join the darkness, but to turn on the light and keep turning on the light until more people. And if I've got a candle and you've got a candle and your light is not on, I'm going to just pass my light to you. And as you take on your light, we both got our lights lit. My light's still shining bright. It hasn't diminished one particle, but yours still lit. So I can actually share light with you and not diminish myself. Not many parts of the world or in physics or in science that you can just give something and not be any less yourself. You can share a light and not be any less.
That's lovely.
So shared a lot. We've got to do this. We've got. It's an absolute must to share
agree.
the light through love and through caring and the arm around the shoulder and the conversation and the smile and the card and the postcard and the kind letter and all the things and the giving of the £5. All these things, because it's our world.
So what would you say to people out there, because we've just gone into lockdown 2, we're in London now, but obviously other parts of the country have gone into lockdown 3, there's even unrest in our country, obviously.
Yeah, indeed.
What would you say to people out there that are just feeling the loneliness, despair, fear?
Yeah. I fully understand where people are from an emotional, spiritual position right now with all this division, darkness and uncertainty and fear around. The only real response to that is to say, really begin to work on your light. Many of us looking to someone else to turn the light on so we can see our way. No, each of us has our own light. And that may start with a kind word. It may literally start with a smile. It may start with not responding. And someone throws your ball on social media, that's a dark ball. And you might go, oh, I'll catch that ball and they'll throw it back to them even harder. No, it's about, God bless you. Okay. And then moving on. Because the darkness can't take the light. And when you don't catch someone's ball, the game's over.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's moving on, letting go. And so it's about bit by bit, step by step, day by day, hour by hour, is doing something that brings more light into the world. Whoever you are, do your bit. If you're an 80-year-old lady, do your bit. If you're a 20-year-old guy in social media and you're an entrepreneur, do your bit. Because if we don't do our part, if we don't play our part, then how do we win? Because if you don't share your light now, when will you? Yeah. And if there's light leading in the world and you don't share it, who will? And if you share the light only for yourself, who are you? You know the world, every one of us knows the world is in a dark place and it was hitherto. But it's not about what can you do, it's about what can I do. I can share my light. I can give a smile or a contribution to someone. I can make a difference. I can call a friend. I can say, for someone that's lonely and I know that they're lonely, they've told me that they're lonely, I can call them. And importantly, when I'm feeling discomfort and uncomfortable or not quite right, that's the point I make myself reach out to somebody else from my discomfort and say, how are you doing? What's happening with you? Can I help with that? Anything you need? Say, okay. Or maybe I just listen. Okay, if I understand. That's because it's okay to help other people in our comfort, but from our discomfort, it's so much more. And the positive kickback is that it lifts us as well. I'm not sure that's, but that's what I'm feeling.
That is beautiful, and actually, I wish this would go around to many more people around the world need to hear that and really take action and take note and just really do things that come from their true purpose and passion.
Indeed.
Derek, this has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank
I
you,
could
Sonya.
honestly talk to you all day.
Ditto, yeah.
What I really want to know is, where are you at right now? What does the future hold without the goals for Derek?
Okay. What's interesting is that who knows what's happening in the world, because in the last 8 or 9 months, more people have made inquiries to me, maybe corporates, individuals, coaching, entrepreneurs, property people, have inquired than ever before. So the world is seeking. So what I propose to be, and people like you, people of the light, like me, is to just be there, not try and direct it, because who knows, is to be there and to be ready to share the light and to be the light and to get the light out there and to put light into dark places, because that's where it's needed, and really just to hold the space for other people. So that's the one thing I'm doing and being right now. In terms of project that I'm on, the second book I'm writing in the 10-second philosophy series for Hay House is the working title. I've not told anybody this yet.
Oh, wow.
Apart from those closest to me, so it's a bit of an exclusive.
Okay, exclusive. Are you ready for this, everyone?
Okay, yeah. The working title is "Where's the Love in That?"
Where's the love in that? I love
Yeah, because I'm going to address is how we treat one another, how we treat ourselves, how the politicians, how they speak to each other, what they do, and how nations, and from a level of what am I doing here today with this relationship here, to why is he saying that, and people are following it, but there's 100% zero love in that. And in fact, there's a lot of hate there. So when you're being a leader and you're spouting hate, where's the love in that? When you make a policy about this and you're going to cage children or take away 20 million people's healthcare benefits in the worst pandemic for 100 years, where's the love in that? When you look at someone in your building and you treat them in a certain way because you're feeling the squeeze a bit and you let somebody go and you know they're struggling, but you could keep them on, but you choose not to, where's the love in that? So it's really exploring everything, going back to this 10-second philosophy, pulling out the key principles from that, and then really sharing and addressing our behaviour and saying, where's the love in that? Because if we can begin to question, because you know what I noticed is I was watching so many conversations over the last 7 or 8 months, and like you said, more so in the last 2 or 3 months, and I was thinking, well, I could answer that. But if I answer that, it's going to look like opposition, and they're going to throw me a ball back, and there's going to be like this debate. But I would just, when people put stuff out there, and I would just, and you've probably seen some of my posts on Facebook, and I would just go, blah, 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 so-and-so's doing this. Where's the love in that? Because then you've got to answer, if you've done that, where's the love in that? That's the key thing, it's the greatest gift. Where's the love in that? Now you've got to answer that, not to me. You've got to answer that to you and to your creator. Where's the love in that? Whatever you do, whether you're president or prime minister or someone that's in the personal development field spouting hate and division, you ask that question, where's the love in that? No, don't tell me the answer to that question. You answer that question. And maybe when you answer that question, you go on a journey.
Well, I want to get my copy now. I want to put myself forward. I've got to say, absolutely, I mean, this taught me so much. And I've actually just downloaded the Audible because I'm starting to read it again as well.
I'm doing a lot more Audible myself.
It's something that you can dip in and out of all the time because there are certain chapters. I absolutely love this book, and I would encourage anyone to go out. We'll put the links as well in the show notes. And where can people find out about you, Derek?
Yeah, go to the website at dailystandards.com. Just go and then we'll find stuff and links to me. Find me on Facebook.
You've got some great quotes that you
I feel things, and what comes up to my spirit, I put it out there. Simple as that. And I always feel, because what I've realised now is I cannot even count how many people have sent me a private message saying, this was meant for me today. As in, when you feel something, when you feel part of the oneness and you're acting from that space, maybe another level for some people, it's like the universe knows itself, like any machine. It knows all parts, and it supports, and the body supports the parts. I drink the water from the cup, and it takes it to the whole of my body, not just to the mouth. It says, oh, the toe's a bit thirsty, let's get some water to the toe, and the whole system works to support it. If I can't reach the water, my feet will engage and take me to the water, because the whole system is supporting itself and one another, and that's what we're seeking to do here. So when I feel that something comes out of me and says, say that or state that, it may mean nothing to 5,000 people, but to one person, they go, oh, yeah. That's what I needed this morning at 10 o'clock, and it came in.
And if people can read that now, then that's amazing.
Yeah.
My final question. If you were to write a message in a bottle for future generations to find, what would that message be?
Really simple. I would say love God and love one another as yourself.
Derek, thank you with all of my heart for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like, and you'll get it straight into your inbox.